first, I want to give you a little background about psychoanalysis. He's the father of psychoanalysis, Sigmund Freud. I think if y'all are psychology students, y'all must have heard a lot about him, and his name is quite famous in psychology. He was actually an Austrian neurologist, so he didn't really start his journey as a psychologist or a psychoanalyst, but he was always fascinated with the depth of the human mind. So he always felt that neurology or science couldn't always explain what's really going on with the human mind. So during the course of his work as a neurologist, he started to come up with a theory of what the human mind actually is, and that there are layers to it. Instead of it being a very straightforward and one directional thing, there are actually layers to it which even the person himself is not aware of. That's how his idea of the unconscious mind was born. And he's known as the father of psychoanalysis because he was the first person to actually talk about the unconscious mind and the subconscious mind and the idea of the ego. And he hence started using the word psychoanalysis because he felt that this was a separate school of thought and it was a different way of approaching the mind. When he was living in Vienna and when he was working in Vienna, if you see the dates, it's 1856 to 1939. At that time, Europe was a very, very conservative society. And his ideas were not very well received because at that time, one of the therapies which was commonly used in psychiatric wards across Europe was electric shocks. And he was against that. He felt that it made hysterical patients worse and it made psychosis worse. And he believed that there was a more sympathetic way of approaching hysteria, which was the most common form of diagnosis that patients received at that point of time in Europe, was hysteria. So he started to believe that there was a more sympathetic and gentle way of treating patients and actually going deep into their mind and into their traumas that they had experienced, and that would show a significant difference in their condition. His theories were met with a lot of resistance, especially from esteemed neurologists and psychiatrists of those times, because the only therapy that they really believed in was medication and electric shocks. So it was really met with a lot of resistance, but he persevered. He didn't give up. And he actually, eventually wrote many books on psychoanalysis. So he's known as the father of this school of thought because he was the first man to actually write about using psychoanalysis as a therapeutic strategy. He lived and worked most of his life in Vienna, but because he was very, very radical in his thinking, and there was a very the environment in Europe at that point of time was very, very volatile because of the World War I and then, of course, World War II. So he actually left Europe and lived the rest of his life in the UK in exile. And he eventually died there.